Morning. Wanted to talk about a couple things today. Number one is we're getting into close to the winter months of the year, and I know a lot of people have questions about how late they can start the building process. And a lot of people would probably prefer to not start building once the weather turns, once we start getting snow and whatnot. As a builder, it's rain or it's snow, it's precipitation either way. So I don't feel like just because it's going to start snowing, you're going to have issues with the framing process or, issues with, I think the misconception is, well, if it snows and that snow, lands on my subfloor and gets into the house before I've got a roof on there, it's gonna freeze and it'll be stuck to the wood, and once the house is enclosed and heated up, that'll melt. And the wood is obviously, it's okay to get wet. It came from a tree. Now you can't have standing water sitting on top of a subfloor. You don't want to have your wood constantly being wet. So there is definitely a concern if, and this probably happens more with rain than it actually does with snow, but if your subfloor is constantly underwater and it's just getting pounded with rain and it's exposed to the elements for a long period of time, there could be some issues with the swelling of the floorboards. Typically, builders going to use a 3/4 inch piece of OSB on the floor sheathing, and that's kind of like layers of pieces of wood that are glued together. So if those do get wet for a long period of time, they can swell. But these floors are made to handle this weather, so shouldn't be something that's really a concern. I think another issue people have is, the house gets all framed up. You've got the roof on there, the roof sheathing, and we get hammered with a bunch of snow before the shingles are on. Well, so we're going to shovel off the snow. We've still got frozen snow on top of the roof, and we're going to put the shingles down. And are they going to hold up, once we get strong winds? Maybe not, but once we do get some warmer weather come next spring again, and any of the sunny days that we have, it'll give the shingles a chance to bond there. And once again, the roof shingles are going on before there's any insulation in the attic. Everything's wide open on the inside. Even though the windows and the doors are usually set, you still have areas that are open to the outside. In your soffit areas, they haven't done the siding yet, so you still have air that's coming through there. So bottom line is, even if you have some frozen snow beneath the roof sheathing that goes down first, that's going to melt and it's going to come through the roof sheathing. It's going to soak through there, and because it's open and still airy inside, it's going to dry up. And then once the shingles go on top of that, again, it will take time for the shingles to bond to the roof, and that may not happen until spring. So if your shingles do go on in the winter, then it may be a case of, we get some strong winter winds, and maybe you do have some shingles that blow off. It's not a huge deal, especially with us. We're using a product called Pro Armor. It's almost like a Tyvek wrap that goes underneath your shingle. So it does not allow water to penetrate, and it does not tear like the normal black felt paper you would typically see under a roof shingle. That is susceptible to water soaking through, and it can tear pretty easily. So if you do get a shingle or 2 or 3 that blow off, you want to have this Pro Armor product, which is Owens Corning. There's other roofing companies that make similar products. You want something like that under your shingles. So again, as a builder, I don't feel like that's a huge issue. But pouring concrete in the winter, I think that's one of the things that you may wonder, can we still dig the hole in the winter? Can we still, when do you stop digging holes? When do you stop pouring concrete is something that I hear an awful lot. And we don't, we dig just as many holes, and we're in Wisconsin, so it gets cold here. It's 37 degrees out right now. It's November. Actually, take that back. It's almost November. So the hole digging process, you know, if we are in the teens, single digits, we're probably not going to open up the ground because we're going to dig an 8-foot hole for the basement. We don't want to, you know, if possible, freeze out everything. You know, once we dig that hole, don't want to freeze out that hole, if that makes sense. Once you dig the hole, if it's susceptible to all of that super cold air getting in there, it's going to kind of turn to ice all the way around there. So, you know, 20 is fine. Anything above is fine. So they're going to dig the hole. And with us anyways, the next day, and I guess this would be the way to properly do things, especially if it's going to be in the winter. You don't want that hole just sitting open for weeks on end. But we coordinate our concrete wall company who does the footers and basement walls. Typically they are there the day after we dig the hole. So when we're scheduling a hole to be dug, we're not just scheduling that with the excavator. A lot of times the dig date depends on when the concrete wall company can come out there. So we're going to dig the hole, and then the concrete wall company is going to come out. Permastructo is the company that we use. They're going to put in I call them footings, but I know a lot of people call them footers. So they put the footers in, and if it's cold temperatures, they're going to cover everything with hay. So the bottom of the basement floor, the footings, they get covered with hay. That acts as an insulation. Now those footers are going to cure pretty quickly. Any concrete that they're pouring in the winter months, it's going to be a heated concrete mix. So you see the big concrete trucks, it's actually heated inside of that turning drum there. And then there is an additive that's added to the concrete that allows it to cure faster, because when you have colder temperatures, it takes longer for concrete to cure. We don't need it to be 100% cured in order to move ahead, but they insulate over the footings, and then they will come in and then set the basement wall forms on top of the footings, and then they will pour the basement walls. And again, if this is, you know, single digits, really low teens, we're probably not going to do that. We're going to hold off, but we really don't get that many days in a row like that. So it's not like, you know, once December starts, it's, you know, single digits for the entire month. I mean, for the most part, it's going to be, you know, in the 20s and 30s, which is fine for proceeding with everything. So they're going to pour the walls. It's got that extra additive in there to allow it to cure faster. Maybe, you know, the next day after they pour the walls, we strip the forms. Maybe we'll let the foundation sit for 2 weeks instead of a week, and it does get braced from the inside. So before they come to backfill the foundation, the walls are going to sit and cure. So with that extra additive and then using the heated concrete, that helps it, you know, battle the elements while it's curing. And really, every once in a while, maybe we'll get an issue with a cracked wall, but it's something minor, because that can be fixed. And if you're going to have any major issues with your concrete walls, it's going to happen right then and there if it's really cold, or it's going to happen, really most of the time, it's going to be within it's probably going to happen before you move into the home. So it can be fixed. They can inject epoxy into the wall from the inside, from the outside, and that takes care of it. I know myself, I had a small area in my house where I had a little bit of a crack in the foundation wall. They filled it with epoxy, and I have not had a single issue with it since. So, you know, maybe there is a little more risk because the ground's frozen, and so if you're pouring concrete and maybe there's, you know, the small little walls that we put underneath for the porches, you know, that's only dug down 4 feet. The basement's dug down 8 feet. So when the ground freezes, and if the frost is getting really, really low into the ground, you know, maybe it pushes up those smaller concrete walls that are going to be underneath the porch. So then, yeah, you will have a little bit of a crack there. Now that will settle back down, and again, that can be epoxied, and you should not have, you know, any major issues with that. So there's really no need to, you know, wait until springtime to start construction, you know, from our standpoint of view. So if that's something that you were unaware of, you know, when can we, you know, keep building up into, it's year round, at least for us. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think that was something that I know I hear a lot, so just wanted to do a quick little video on that. Thanks for your time. Have a great rest of the day. God bless.